Happening now. We want to welcome our viewers from across the United States and around the world. This is the EdTech Situation Room. Good morning, good day, good evening. This is EdTech Situation Room, episode number 344 on January 15th, 2025. My name is Jason Neiffer, and I am the Executive Director of the Montana Digital Academy, which is Montana's wonderful state virtual school located on the beautiful University of Montana campus in Missoula, Montana. And I'm joining you tonight from the guest room at my parents' house in my hometown of Great Falls, Montana. And joining me tonight, as always, someone who didn't get the memo that it was tie night on the EdTech Situation Room. Good evening, Dr. Wesley Fryer. And I just got to say, I'm so looking forward to all the new equipment you've brought to the EdTech Situation Room tonight.
Well, we are streaming in 1080 for the first time, I guess. And I am not using this, which... if you've watched the last couple of shows, Velcro can be a finicky way to hold your webcam. But yes, I am Wes Fryer. I am a middle school media literacy and STEM teacher in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I am thrilled that we are here. And I think, yay, she's there. Hello, Peggy George, coming to us from Phoenix. It is so good to have you with us live. So, Jason, I think we're going to talk about some AI tonight. You did you move a few articles up from past weeks?
I moved one article up from past week, and the rest of them are fresh. So
Okay.
I kind of I've been really working hard the last 2 months on like how I grab articles, how I read articles, what I do with them when I'm done, and so I had some fresher stuff to work with than I typically do. And I also think too that there are some other topics that we should most certainly cover in addition to AI, but I'm feeling an increased necessity to help provide some guidance and some conversation to our colleagues across the educational sphere to think about how we're going to deal with this fast moving technology.
We have hit a milestone. We went over 100 subscribers on YouTube, which is kind of cool. And that could be related to the relatively viral clip of Dr. Neiffer talking about, what is it? Just not Armageddon, but Sam Altman and artificial intelligence. So anyway, we're putting some clips out there thanks to Substack, which automatically identifies what it thinks will be the most viral clips from episodes. So
yep, that's pretty great.
Pretty cool. I think we need to talk about free speech for sure today because, wow, there's just so much happening, especially with Meta. And I don't know I think if we don't have a couple articles in there about that,
I did throw a Meta article in there.
Okay, good.
Just if for no other reason than to inspire some conversation about it. But I know it feels like that. I know. Remember when we started the podcast? It was 8-9 years ago. And the amount of information seemed so quaint compared to what's being thrown at us today. So I have this conversation often with friends and colleagues, but if you're not able to keep up, I don't think anyone else is either.
Well, and do we need to start off the show with some kind of CAPTCHA where we're showing that we are like real humans? It's going to be increasingly difficult to do. So, but yeah. Jason and I are live and are real. And we have Peggy George, it's going to like vouch for us because she's our buddy. So
yeah,
crazy world.
Well, and I'd also say too that it's not difficult to come up with a clone voices. I think I talked about Play AI on. Have I not talked about Play AI?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, this is part of the problem is maybe Wes and I should just spend 4 or 5 hours a week together just sharing links with each other. But Play AI is a $10 a month service where with one 1-minute voice clone, you can clone your voice and do it in a bunch of different languages. And I actually recently used it to create a 90-second video because I was on an airplane at the time and I needed to send a video clip out that was narrated by me, and I had already had the voice model trained, and it was very easy for me to just write the clip and send it over on top of the video, which means that I was, literally 35,000 feet in the air and able to send over the video that needed to be there. And I just really feel like at this point that this technology is only getting faster and more powerful. And we have some articles tonight about the speed that seems to be somehow, some way picking up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, we did put the link to the show notes in our chat, which will include the things we'll talk about and things we won't. And so we've got AI topics, including AI applications, chatbots, AI in education, media literacy, and AI sundries. We've got a couple TikTok specific articles because, as we know, Sunday is a big day looming for TikTok. And then we've got some Microsoft articles, other social media articles, the lovely miscellaneous category, and Geeks of the Week, which I went ahead and dropped in your Play AI, Jason,
Thank
as
you.
a early Geek of the Week. So where should we start in this wonderful, is panoply a word of AI articles?
Something along those lines. So let's go ahead and do some non-AI stuff because there are some big things going on that have absolutely nothing to do with artificial intelligence. Let's start with the TikTok for TikTok. It's the last minutes here, and we're sharing just a Vox article about how the Supreme Court seems like it's unlikely to step in and save TikTok. I've seen literally dozens of influencers and commentators kind of go through the oral arguments to see if there was any hope for TikTok, and there's a pretty universal belief that at least amongst the creation set that the court will not come in and save TikTok from the forced sale. There is
from the closure because of a failure to force sell.
Failure to force the sale, and of course, there's a lot of last minute deals going on, and there's also some evidence that soon to be again President Trump might step in and save it. There was also Senator Markey from Massachusetts also went to the Senate floor. I think it was last night to demand that we give it a brief stay because he felt that there wasn't a full debate on the issue, and they had attached it to a must-pass humanitarian bill, and that he feels like that with the number of people that are using the platform and also the number of small businesses and entrepreneurs that use the platform, that it was hasty not to give this a little more thought. So who knows what will happen. I did also share an article from USA Today that talks about how at one point the support for the ban was above 50%, and now it's down to 30% or under of Americans that support the ban of TikTok. And what I would say is that, I mean, I like TikTok, but I also know that beyond the national security issues, which I still don't really understand the evidence there. Not that it doesn't exist. I just don't think it's been very well articulated by those that are pushing anti-TikTok stuff. But what I would also say is that, I deleted it off my phone because I was having problems limiting my use of it. And the way I saw it referred into some literature about attention and mental health is that it's extremely cheap endorphins, that, it's really all around a very quick mental fix. You can see a lot of content really quickly. The algorithm is by all accounts, not just my own experience, very good at kind of pulling you in and keeping you there. And there was times when I lose 45 minutes or an hour to a quick, look at TikTok. And so I had to delete it off my phone. Now I left it on another device so that I would be limited. And then also I turned on the parental controls on myself. And so I could only use
There's a sign of the time.
Yeah, I know. That I could only use it for 15 minutes a day before it warned me I was using 15 minutes. And I stayed true to that. I've been engaging more in it lately on the odd chance it's not there because I follow about probably 100 creators that are only on TikTok that I like, legal commentators and a lot of cooking channels, all a great part of, of this process. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was listening, of course, also to podcasts and folks talking about it. And they were saying that, the Supreme Court could step in, but this is law. This has been signed by the courts. There is no legal precedent for the court stepping in, and there's actually no constitutional basis for them to step in at this point. That doesn't mean that politically they can't do whatever they want. I guess they are the Supreme Court. But yeah, it looks like then that'll be pretty disruptive. I think that's probably one of the main sort of news headlines related to social media that has definitely grabbed the attention of my middle school students, and it's going to affect a lot of folks. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to take a topic, Wes?
Oh gosh. Yeah, let's talk about Meta. So here's the New York Times on January 7th. Meta says it will end its fact-checking program on social media. Let me first ask, Jason, did you watch Zuckerberg's talk on Instagram or his 3-hour Joe Rogan? Have you watched that?
I could not bring myself to do the Joe Rogan. I did watch his Instagram post.
Okay, well, basically, it appears that Zuckerberg, in a obeying in advance and kissing the ring moment, has decided to completely reverse the policies and the values of Facebook when it comes to misinformation and disinformation, but not just that, but also hate speech. And so they are going to legally, I guess, still, take down CSAM, child pornography, violent content. But when it comes to harassment, hate speech, attacks on different folks, they're going to, quote, use the community notes feature of Twitter, which apparently only affects about 10% of the posts on Twitter. And while crowdsourcing can be valuable, it is really, really difficult to imagine that this is going to be anything other than more of a dumpster fire. So lots and lots of people upset. I was looking at Google News today for Meta headlines, and top one, and I didn't put this one in, but Meta boycott Facebook, Instagram users delete accounts over policy changes. So I'm not deleting my accounts. In fact, I spent a year off of Twitter. I still haven't put a blog post up about it, but I'm very lightly back on Twitter. I'm actually utilizing Truth Social, in part because as a media literacy teacher, it's important for me to know what these other platforms are and what's being shared there. And it's not like I want to spend a lot of my time there particularly, but this is I think we're having multiple seismic changes in the politics of the United States. And I think that this change in Facebook's policy is seismic, meaning like it is a massive, huge change that's going to have dramatic impacts. And so, any thoughts on that, Dr. Neiffer?
Yeah, I mean, I left Facebook this week. I've never done it before. I may go back. I just turned my account off. And part of it was that I had to fill out a background form because I'm applying for an appointment from the governor. So they wanted all my Facebook or my social media profiles, which I totally shared. I have nothing to hide in any of those pieces, but I just decided that I don't want to be associated with Facebook at this point. And Instagram's a little different for me because I feel like that content is by nature less political, but Facebook had become a little more palatable for me in the last 6 months because I felt like there was less politics on there. And the reason why there was less politics is because I felt like the algorithm was sending me more. Well, I got more women's basketball content than I got politics. And so that's more interesting to me. Plus the pictures of my friends and family. Sure. That's all part of it. But I just think that this kowtowing to what appears to be the Trump administration is just the wrong way to go. I understand that Facebook felt an existential threat from the Trump administration because he had specifically called out Mr. Zuckerberg and Facebook several times.
And he called for him to go to jail. I mean, this is not a small sort of, interaction. It's a pretty major one.
And I don't I feel like a lot of the rhetoric behind this just isn't sensical, right? Like, I don't understand the notion of, we're going back to our roots and blah, 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 blah. Like, you're not
Yeah.
going to make this a college dating site, Mr. Zuckerberg. So what are you doing?
Well, the free speech thing, I mean, and the language, the way that he and Facebook and Meta have really avoided calling content moderation censorship. And so his Instagram post, and I haven't seen the Rogan thing either, just read about it. Was an admission saying that we've over censored, and we really, just want to support free speech. He was asking for Trump, directly to help him counter legal obstacles like Brazil, which Twitter had faced a shutdown, right? Twitter was blocked for a while. I think it's restored now in the entire nation of Brazil, but it's unfortunate for a lot of reasons. And content moderation, one of the things, and I don't have this podcast to cite, which I should, but I've been listening to a bunch about this. Some folks will say that effective content moderation at massive scale with humans is impossible, because of the millions and millions of posts and the quantity of content. What Facebook has been doing has been using algorithms to moderate content, and something else I haven't blogged about. I just got to get blogging. What the heck am I doing with my time? I was kicked off of Facebook for, I want to say, about a month or so. And it was because of a post that I had put up 10 years previously, which they said violated a community standard. And if it wasn't for a friend who had an in-law relative that works for Meta that put in a form, like, I wouldn't have had my account restored. So, there's definitely problems with algorithmic moderation, and it's not a simple and clean and wonderful situation. And honestly, I don't know how much Meta. I don't think I really saw even many of the counter information. There's a word for that, but that was when, Twitter would post something like, this is considered a conspiracy theory and this is a link to it. Or most people, I don't know what exactly they would say, but when things were pretty conspiratorial or misinformation-ish, they would tend to, provide a Wikipedia link in the hope that somebody's going to, click on that and recognize, hey, wait a second, this may not be accurate. So anyway, ironically, as I continue my media literacy project, Conspiracies and Culture Wars, it's probably going to be easier for me to share those articles on Facebook, and I mainly do that in a private Facebook group. But I am increasingly aware, and have been for some time, of the danger that we face talking about different issues and taking different kinds of political stands. And so, I have been using a private Facebook group for a while. I started a Patreon that I haven't posted a ton into, but it's for real. I'm very concerned about the potential for people who stand up for things like, human rights and representative democracy, religious tolerance, media literacy even. I don't think that should be politicized. I don't think it should be.
No.
But I think we have to be careful. And, if you've been watching the show for a while, that I became aware, over a year ago, of this idea that every word we say is being transcribed, right, by the algorithms. And Jason, here's a quick story. My dad, I taught him how to talk to ChatGPT on his phone over Christmas, and we had lots of fun conversations. Did you talk to Santa, by the way, when Santa was on ChatGPT?
I didn't, but I saw some demos of it. It was pretty cute.
God. We did that in the car one time driving home for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes or something. It was hilarious. Santa would not talk politics with you, but he would say all kinds of stuff about the North Pole and Rudolph and tell you jokes. It was hilarious. But anyway, I taught Dad how to do this. And so he was asking about different classmates and stuff. And about 2 months ago, we did an interview over Zoom that's on YouTube with one of his Air Force Academy classmates. And Dad asked about a story, and ChatGPT knew about it because it has ingested YouTube, and it ingested that. Like, I don't think that story, Dad didn't think that story was anywhere else. So I'm telling everyone, please be aware, and we're doing this right now because we're streaming live to YouTube and this is recorded. Like, everything that we say on this show, everything that you or I put onto YouTube is being ingested into large language models and is therefore going to be searchable and people can access it. there's a positive to that, right? Because it's kind of cool that these stories that my dad and his classmate Wayne told and they shared about Air Force Academy days and cadet days and things, they're fun. I love oral history, but it was a jarring realization for me to think, oh my gosh, the reason that my dad's phone just orally said out loud this story about his classmate is because that we put that on YouTube, thanks to a Zoom that we did 2 months ago. So that was kind of wild.
Yeah. And and I like how you put that, Wes, because I do think there is a vast positive benefit to this, but also the nature of intellectual property is about to get blown up again somehow, right? In this new era. And I didn't put an article in about this, but the New York Times lawsuit is starting to go through its court process against Microsoft and OpenAI.
I do have an article about that.
Do you? Go ahead, please.
That's a good segue because that's, again, this is the future, right? This really, a lot hinges on this. This is an NPR from yesterday, January 14th. New York Times takes OpenAI to court. ChatGPT's future could be on the line. And what it reviews is that the defense that OpenAI is using for this lawsuit, which again, to recap, is the New York Times says, you didn't ask for permission. We didn't give permission. You didn't pay to ingest all of our archives, the New York Times. And ChatGPT's response is, well, we don't have to because this is fair use. And our tool is not used to, extract full text copies. The only reason you got that is because you searched thousands of times and used, these exact long quotes, and you were able to get that. But we actually remix content and create new content. So this is an epic test of fair use and what fair use law will or will not do for LLMs. The remedy that the New York Times, among others, I think is pushing for is for OpenAI to delete its entire archive, like it's all its training data that it used and that has been in its view corrupted, or it's just been influenced irreparably by the ingestion of all of the New York Times. And so this is massive. It's a huge deal. And we're going to hear about this soon. The hearing happened on yesterday, and OpenAI had a motion to dismiss. And so we're going to see what happens, but it's a big deal. Companies like Adobe, with Adobe Firefly, which is their generative AI, visual platform, are making a big deal out of the fact that they are claiming that they have trained out of all licensed content. So it is a wild west, and it does seem like some regulation is needed. What do you think, Jason? What does your crystal ball tell you is going to happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've heard several commentators that have said that it's likely that the courts are going to come down on the side of AI companies here. I don't necessarily believe that, although I'll go back to that conversation that we talked about. This was like a year and a half ago on Hard Fork, where they brought in an actual intellectual property attorney who said that this will be contentious for some time, and then, just like Spotify at some point figured out a way to cut licensing deals with the music industry, they'll figure out a way to cut licensing deals with content. But it will be a huge bump in the road if all of the training that's happened to this point, and I'm particularly thinking about the meta models that they've admitted that they ingested, tons of copyrighted books with zero permission, that if they're going to have to start from scratch again. And I also think that, creates some competitiveness internationally, because I would imagine there are some countries that don't give one squat about intellectual property, that will ingest anything they can find, whether it's freely available or not. And I was really interested, Dr. Fryer, in as we mentioned in past weeks, I gave a presentation on Saturday to the Media Ed Lab online conference, and there was a couple of folks that I was showing off, like a quick creation of of Notebook LM, Notebook as a knowledge oracle, and in this particular case, I used just 10 PDFs that I found in an open search. I consider that fair use in my particular use, in part because I know it's not training off of that. But there's some folks that I think had a legitimate argument to say that they felt like that gave them the copyright heebie-jeebies. And I don't have a clean answer to this, but I am very curious to see what happens in the coming weeks and months as we try to figure out the extraordinary intellectual property questions that AI introduces.
And I have known this for quite a while, but it highlights it for school and in education. I do not think I have not done a good enough job talking with students about copyright and helping them have not only an understanding of copyright, but also fair use. And so this could be a good opportunity to talk about fair use. What we have tended to do in education, and I'm not throwing librarians under the bus because I love librarians, but in the library and in some other information literacy contexts, sometimes we have tried to present a very clear, bright line, and it goes, what is that? The 1986 Fair Use Guidelines for Educational Media, which is like, use only 10% or 25, or so many words or whatever's less. And it was these rules which were well-intentioned, but which were not the law. And the law of fair use is actually a lot more vague and ambiguous. And so anyway, this is important. It's important to talk about. Students need to know what the laws are. We've got more content creators. I mentioned today that I keep a webpage of student YouTubers that I have known back in Oklahoma and now. And I learned a couple of my new students this semester, have YouTube channels and they're sharing them with me. And I think that's fantastic. But I also think that it's important to navigate a whole lot of issues when it comes to content creation. And one of those is copyright. So
yeah, absolutely.
What else would you like to talk about that's not AI related?
Well, let's do a quick Microsoft update here, and we've been warning about this for a good year or two now. But Windows 10 end of life later this year, and there are ways to pay to extend Windows 10 security updates. I believe that's available to personal users as much as enterprise users, but in the same way that a lot of people have been up in arms about Chromebooks only lasting for 7 years and then 10 years and then creating a lot of e-waste, I think that's exactly what Microsoft is doing right now with their insistence that any computer that's more than 5 years old, can't run an updated an updated Microsoft operating system. And they've doubled down on that now by saying that although the apps will still work after October 14th, when Windows 10 ends its life, at some point Office will stop working on that, and then and at the same time they have been very wishy-washy about whether or not you can even upgrade with a machine that qualifies to run it, and that's an 8th generation Intel chip or newer. And I think they're not treating this in a super wise way. I will say that I don't have any machines left on Windows 10. I've upgraded, my couple of Windows machines. I have a work one and a home one, and then one that kind of serves as a de facto server. I've upgraded all those to Windows 11, and Windows 11 is fine. I mean, I feel like it's a little more clunky than Windows 10. Windows 10 seems to have a smoother interface to me, but it's fine. Good enough operating system to get the job done, but I do think that Microsoft is making a mistake here, and I think schools are going to be absolutely at a disadvantage here because of it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Peggy's got a comment. Annoying, forcing people to update their software. It is, but this is part of the reality of the world we live in, because security updates are essential. And when folks don't have updated devices, updated firmware, it actually puts us all at risk, because Internet of Things attack, look up the Mirai botnet, which was one of the biggest attacks that happened with Internet of Things devices that actually a couple college kids, I think, had started. Then they put it out on the open web. We do need to update our stuff. And that reminds me, Jason, I don't know if you know this. I teach exclusively in a Windows 11 lab now. So that's kind of a big deal. Yeah, because I teach in our esports lab, and I have been teaching 3 of my 4 classes there. But we're actually our esports. If you know anybody interested in doing esports in Charlotte, North Carolina, we've got it posted on our website. I can put that in the show notes. We've got a fantastic esports lab, and anyway, because of schedules, my one class that I was meeting in another room with MacBook laptops has moved into the esports room. So I really enjoy it. It's just so fun to have super fast, amazing machines with huge monitors, and I've got this massive wall that I get to project my stuff onto, and I have 2 screens, and it's like I'm kind of in geeky heaven there. But it's odd because I wouldn't have thought, Windows, but we're in Chrome most of the time. So anyway.
Well, and I'll just make one other kind of weird pitch here of something that I've done really recently that, it's not by main machine at all. But as Dr. Fryer knows, I have maybe a couple of laptops and desktop machines around me all the time. But I installed regular old Ubuntu Linux to a laptop a couple weeks ago that I couldn't get anything else to work on. And because of driver issues, and it's such a clean and beautiful operating system. As you install Chrome on it, and it's effectively a Chromebook, and runs a lot faster than anything else I installed on it. So, if you are someone that has a relatively fast 6th or 7th generation Intel machine, and you want security updates, it might be time to experiment a little bit with Linux or Chrome OS Flex, which is also great on older systems as well. But it's funny to me because it seems like that Microsoft is still very relevant in a lot of ways, but they're acting like they're not anymore, and that seems to be kind of how Microsoft really plays the market.
Hey, Lisa Durf is in the house. How exciting to have you here. So it's fun. Please feel free to toss in questions, comments, links, anything like that you would like to share. So sometimes it's just Jason and I, and it's fun, but it's fun to have Peggy and Lisa here. So, and if you're listening to the archive of this, you can join us live as well. Isn't it? This is still freaking crazy to get to do, right? I mean, just here we are, just, sitting in our respective states and homes across the country, and it's like there's no delay. I mean, the latency is just so small.
This and when I think I mentioned this, that I worked at a TV station when I was in high school. I was a production assistant for the news team, and also did some control room switching, which is actually the best job ever. But you get paid to watch TV for 8 hours. But the fact that we can do a live show and then broadcast it out to the world with a couple of clicks is pretty stunning.
We need to promote our Facebook page though, because we still don't have 100 followers there. And if we can do that, we can broadcast live on Facebook again. But now people are quitting Facebook, so maybe forget that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're 32 minutes in. You want to do a couple more non-AI, and then we'll jump in the AI rabbit hole?
I don't have a movie
for that, or a little video. I want to do this one. Germany. It's so interesting to me what's happening with a fractured internet and the way that Europe is different regulatory wise. This is Reuters from January 10th. German government may quit X over algorithms, spokesperson says. So I think probably most people realize, Germany has some really different laws with respect to speech. There are symbols and there are words that are the names. I'm not going to say this word because, again, this is not I stand by this, but it's bizarre to think about. If I say this word, it's part of our transcript. But there was a party that was in charge of Germany in the Second World War, and they were elected in a democratic way to power. And so, there's things that you cannot say, symbols that cannot be presented. And so Elon Musk, who is the owner and controller of the Twitter platform, which I still like to call it Twitter, had embraced Alice Wood, I'm saying his name here, Wildau, leader of Germany's far-right AfD party. And so in response to that, German government spokesperson noted that X and other social media platforms have algorithms that do not promote, quote, a calm, objective, and balanced discourse, but rather one that tends to be agitated and polarizing. And I don't know, I think I actually shared this article in one of my private channels, but there are folks in Britain. Well, shoot, I should just say it. Carol Caldwaller, am I saying her name right? She's the one that helped break Cambridge Analytica. Her Substack. Anyway, she had written about how some governments may be considering Twitter under this new administration, as a weaponized platform of a foreign adversary. I mean, it's crazy. So anyway, Germany's considering apparently maybe quitting the platform, but it reaches such a broad audience. Like many people, like many journalists, they feel like their hands are tied. So I think that's fascinating. Yeah, there's a Substack for Carol. I'll drop that link in. It's really, and she had put this together rather quickly. I'll drop the link in. Her Substack is called, I don't know if this is the right one. Okay, I'll drop it in. Thoughts on that, Jason?
The global nature of social media only increases the complexity, right? And one thing I would say, not necessarily in defense of the social media companies, but having to navigate 200 governments around the world, of which you're expected to respect the laws of all of them if you're going to do business with them, is an extraordinary challenge. But at the same time, I will say that the logarithmic delivery of social media content is a huge problem, whether we want to admit it or not. And I don't blame anyone who decides that they just can't deal with that anymore because of the extraordinary impacts of it.
I'll go ahead and put this link in. This is her post from January 13th. It's called Total Information Collapse. And it is a response to what we were talking about earlier with Zuckerberg. She's writing from Britain, but it's definitely worth checking out. And I'll drop in a link. I have this private Facebook group called Conspiracies and Culture Wars. And if anybody's interested in content like that, there are things that I'm not sharing. I mean, here I am tossing it out. I don't know. It's probably fine, but it sucks when you're like, whoa, if I share this link, is this going to be problematic? Okay. Shall we jump into the AI rabbit?
Yeah. So I did find a couple of interesting articles that I thought we could start with this week. EdTech magazine today released a list of the AI trends in EdTech to watch. And I will say that the prognosticating with AI is getting to the point where the only ones that are really true are the obvious ones, because I just don't know what comes next. And in the same way that Sam Altman talking about AGI being a real reality in 2025 and what that means and who's determining what AGI is, all those pieces, I think, make it difficult to look in the future. But I thought these were trends that I really wanted to look at. And also our friend Miguel Guin from the great state of Texas was quoted in the article. So I wanted to share that here tonight. So we'll start with, this is from Alexander Slegg, who's a staff reporter at EdTech magazine. But they start off with AI guardrails will prevail over policy to guide use in classrooms. And they quote our friend in the article, but that there seems to be some notion of kind of guardrails as the better policy at this point, which I think makes a lot of sense. But we'll have to see what that ultimately looks like. But
Can you explain what that means? Because what does that headline even mean? AI guardrails are going to prevail over policy.
I think what that means is that instead of is like a hard rule of do's and don'ts, it just sets up some boundaries so that we can be more expressive in playing with the tech. And I have to say, like, part of the problem with creating any hard and fast rules here is that I think we just don't know what we don't know, right? And I also think there's a huge risk in considering uh, considering saying that we're going to go all in on these technologies, when I think there's ample evidence to suggest that if we're not really careful with students, it may become a crutch that stunts development. Like, I think it's that serious of an issue, and I would I think that one of the fears here that I don't think is outside of the reality is we create a whole generation of soft-brain kids that just aren't prepared with critical thinking skills. But we're doing some work in Montana right now. We hope to get a legislative appropriation to do some work in the space. In part because although we're doing cool things just in the context of our program, there's a lot of work to be done here, and I just don't know if a lot of districts have the wherewithal to experiment in this space. So we'll see. I do think that we need to be giving more direct professional development to teachers on these issues.
Ongoing, not just like, hey, beginning of the
right?
year, you're done. You check the
Well,
box. You're done.
And I hope that we do end up getting some resources to work on this in the state of Montana. In part, that I have a dream of really doing professional development differently. That I do value presentations and workshops and that kind of special professional development. But with all these extraordinary tools at our fingertips, where we can get media and instruction and connection directly in the inboxes of teachers across our state, we should be using all those tools, progressively, in addition to traditional professional development models. That's how you get the ongoing piece that Dr. Fryer is talking about. But I don't know the right answers to this yet. I do think that we need to be really thoughtful about the implementation of this. But I also think we're not going to know really the best practices, like that term's so vague anyways, but best practices, until we have models that are more successful and some models that are not, and then we reiterate on them fairly quickly.
Well, I think that you, more than probably anyone else I know, has a pretty good bead on some of the right ideas and some of the best practices, from your recommendation to play with the tools and use questions in a context that you're knowledgeable about, so that you can do that Neil Postman crap detection with hallucinations and things like that. I'm very inspired by the work that you're doing and the fact that you're able to be advocating at a state level, and that new doors appear to be opening around that. And it makes me think about the importance that for me and others to engage with our state policymakers and educational, not just educational technology, but Department of Education folks, because the frontier of this, there's so much that's not in the mainstream media. I am going to get to play, or I'm going to get to do a webinar hopefully tomorrow with Flint AI, which is the platform that we've licensed at our school. I think, Jason, that building community and connecting teachers to other teachers, like building community, is so important for so many different reasons. But AI is definitely a potentially positive catalyst to bring higher ed together with K-12 and to have some really insightful conversations. What are we going to do? And I'm wrestling with this with my students this semester, particularly energized and excited about the coding potential. I continue myself to have some real amazing success with the creation of some apps that I'm saying like web apps, things there's no way I would be creating. And I've had the realization, I think it was after watching that Oprah special where Sam Altman is describing his future vision, where like basically you'll plan You'll just talk to the AI about the dream house that you have. You'll plan it together, and then robots will go build it for you. Okay. We're quite a few steps away from that, but we're not that many steps away from the AI building, things with code, building web pages, building applications that are written with code. And there's, I guess, not that many folks in K-12 education today who are doing that. And so I'll just say, as you're connecting, Kevin Honeycutt's son, Ben, is a middle school teacher in Colorado. And I think we're going to be able to connect hopefully in the next week or so. Maybe we're going to do like a summer thing on Minecraft and coding, but I want to connect with more specific middle school teachers who are using code and figuring out, what do you have students do? What do you not have them do? Like the potential to collaborate and talk and actually share experiences and use the tools. I think that is just so beneficial, and way more beneficial than just a webinar broadcast that you can see and then be done with.
Yeah. And the other thing I'm really excited about too is the opportunity to try to find a way to make sure that the innovators and leaders in buildings also get the professional development that they need. And I'll tell you that, I'm not all that worried about super advanced techie teachers, right? In part because we all seem to go out and find each other, right? I mean, and we've talked about, 100 times in the past that I'm glad that people listen to this podcast. I'm glad people get some value out of it. But this is really about an opportunity for Wes and I to work through some ideas together for an hour every week and push each other and share resources and think about that process. And if someone else gets benefit out of it, great. But you'll notice that there's no sponsors. You'll notice that, with the exception of YouTube, there's no advertising. We're not doing this for fame and fortune. Now, if we suddenly had 100,000 listeners a week, I don't think we would deny the power of what that could do for the audience. But the bottom line is that, a lot of the advanced teachers do find things like, podcasts or other folks over social media to push themselves. But I also think that districts generally underinvest in their most advanced teachers and leave them to, kind of discovering things on their own. And I have no idea if this is going to happen or not in Montana or what that looks like. But I would really like the opportunity to try to develop a system where the most advanced teachers are as engaged as those that need more assistance, because the bottom line is that every teacher needs to be challenged. Every teacher needs to express a sense of newness in their teaching and in their learning, and that's the crux of lifelong learning. But I do know a lot of folks that are very advanced in their fields, whether it's the pedagogy or it's technology or it's differentiation or it's something that they're truly wonderful at, but they largely have to create their own professional development experiences. So we'll see. But super interested in those as a trend.
Well, keep us posted. We're barely scratching the surface for your articles here, and we've got
I know.
Minutes,
and plus, I think we both have. We both have huge Geeks of the Week too. So second, AI will power more personalized learning experiences, and talking about custom GPTs to design learning experiences. Obviously, I think that's going to be an increasingly bigger part of this. I will say that I understand why a lot of schools are going with existing school related vendors on AI instead of developing their own stuff, because there's just less less possibility for issues or UG in doing precisely that. But as Miguel talks about in the article from TCEA, that you can do you can create your own custom GPTs to do an awful lot of interesting things. And I just want to highlight something that Wes discovered this weekend in my media ed presentation. I tried a new thing where I created a custom GPT and uploaded all of my resources ahead of time, so that folks on the broadcast over Zoom could have something to ask first before putting questions into chat. And there was a URL of a resource that was on one of my slides that wasn't OCR'd. It wasn't in any way accessible. And yet Wes asked the custom GPT what the URL was of this particular resource, and it was able to give it back to him, right? And I keep thinking about how wonderful of a strategy that could be, even if you're a more traditional classroom teacher, just to provide your students access to a nuanced a way of accessing your class resources, or a daily discussion, or a knowledge base created by students, or insert your instructional strategy here. But so interesting that these tools do this amazing stuff.
Absolutely. Here's a quick a couple of AI related articles, and I put these under chatbots. CNN on January 3rd reported that Meta was scrambling to delete its own AI accounts after the backlash intensifies. And I would encourage everybody to read this full article. This is a bit like the Kevin Roose situation with ChatGPT when it first came out with Microsoft, and it was, what was its name? He spent hours with it, Sydney, and found out its real name, and Sydney wanted him to leave his wife, and it was a crazy article. Well, these AI chatbots just hallucinated and lied all over the place, and it is really eye-opening to read. The profiles that they were created by. These folks got. I don't know. You're like, is this true or not? Anyway, they divulged who had created them, and in one case there was a persona that was supposed to be an African-American female, but there weren't any African-Americans that had helped create this, and the pictures of her kids and the things that she said, and just all these different lies, and it's just crazy. And maybe that's a good reason to quit Facebook, because who's signing up to interact with these fake bots? And it actually said, yeah, Facebook is really seeing us as its salvation to really help engagement and really help out the platform. So there's another link there, the Doug Peterson, and I put his link in the show notes on Blue Sky. He shares this great stuff from Sherwood News. But I'll do a shout out. It's kind of a geek of the week, but the first Monday of every month now, I am facilitating a webinar for the Media Education Lab, and February 3rd is going to be AI chatbots. And so I actually added to the required media for that session to try to look at before a link, but there are about 10 links in under optional media and 4 under required media. And if you're not aware of AI chatbots, what's going on with them, your kids could be, right? Because they could be downloading them, and it really is a Wild West, and not an entirely good Wild West. And we've covered some of that in the past, and I think that's an essential topic to talk about. And yes, there's moral panic around that. Again, there's good, but there is some real need for concern around the AI chatbots, because they are not ready for prime time. And I mean, if you're going to interact with them, let's know that you're interacting with an AI, right? And that's part of the issue with Facebook was it wasn't clear that you were interacting with an AI, not a real.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
All right, what else?
Let's see here. This is an article you actually put in for our last episode, Wes, and we didn't get to it. That information literacy is key to the age of AI. Do you want to talk about that one for a moment?
Sure. This is from eSchool News on December 19th. And this is a drum that I'm just beating all the time, and Jason is as well, that media literacy is not something that should be considered optional. This is literacy today, but Dr. Mark Owen Jones, who's with Northwestern University in Qatar, which is kind of interesting, wrote this article and, talks about how key skills that we need today for students, but this is adults as well, is how to navigate the array of disinformation scenarios that we have. And so the article suggests 5 news literacy resources, ways to add AI to your K-12 digital citizenship curriculum, and has some different stories about the ways in which some real contentious topics. Think about wars that are going on right now, and the ways that there's protests about those, here in the United States, and the ways that AI is being used to amplify some of those things. And I think, it's a hard time to teach, right? It's always been hard to teach. It's really hard to teach about current events. It's really hard to teach civics, global issues, but we do need to grapple with these things. And if we are not finding ways to help students grapple with disinformation, AI, the information landscape, the world that we live in, this is the world we live in. And we just can't be reading Romeo and Juliet and pretending like it's, 1955. So I think this was a good article and I would highly recommend it.
Yeah. And, you mentioned earlier librarians, and they've been talking about this for 25 years, that we need to be quadrupling down on media literacy. But if you're not engaging your school librarian in these conversations, now is the time to do so. It's never been more important for us to have access to the information wizards that are librarians.
Peggy's saying in the chat, she hadn't thought about the need for ethics for chatbots. Yeah, I mean, guardrails are an essential part of coding and algorithms in the age of AI, because we can probably all think of things that we wouldn't want people to be generating and creating, and making decisions for ourselves, for our families, and also just raising awareness about the issues. That we talked about this a few weeks ago, but there was a student who committed suicide, and apparently the chatbot had told him to take his life and join her in the ether. That's one of the required articles for that session we're going to do on February 3rd. So lots and lots of issues there, and it's complex.
Okay.
What else?
Well, I have one other quick article that I want to share. This is from Vox in December, and I was pretty interested in the way that they portrayed this. But this is from Adam Clark Estes, who is writing one quick trick to make AI actually useful. And the model here is pretty interesting, because I think it goes back to our broader "you should be playing with AI" notion. But the author suggests essentially that people should try using AI by doing it to help out with annoying chores that you've been putting off, which is like writing a birthday card message or creating a workout plan. Or for him, it was creating a family meal plan and grocery list while walking their dog, which, only took 3 seconds with that. And as it turns out, that's kind of how I've started using AI too, was that I sometimes have a little task avoidance, which is kind of how my brain works. And I've also always known that the eat the frog method of trying to get through your to-do list is sometimes really effective, because you find out that the task wasn't as hard as you thought it was, or you're putting it off for another a reason of kind of how our brains are weird and work. But that's what I've done with it, actually, and it's really helped me understand and create good boundaries of what I consider to be the legitimate uses of AI and where it's not. I will also tell you that at the same time, I strongly believe that you shouldn't use it to do things that you've put off to the absolute last minute, because you still got to be the human in the loop to make sure what you're giving out is not ridiculous or bad in any way, but it's still a pretty great strat. And so if you're struggling with a way to see its power in a way that's useful to you, think about how you can do things that you just simply don't like to do, and see if ChatGPT can help.
I'll drop in the link to my Learning with AI page. It's just ai.wesfryer.com. And I put up a post last week creating a middle school web design syllabus with ChatGPT. That's a professional one. But the post before that was using AI to cook Thanksgiving dinner. There's just, we need to tell stories. We need to tell stories about our use of it. And I think that, especially as we are using it in ways that just help us be more productive, but bring a transformative aspect to our lives, that I need to do more of that. Yeah, Lisa's saying frogs. What was the frog reference there?
Oh, the eat the frog reference.
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, it's an organizational kind of a to-do list strategy, basically, to take on an unpleasant task to start off the day.
Okay, there you go. So getting things done, David Allen, eat the frog. There you go. It's Todoist has a page about it. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. And the book was originally written by Brian Tracy.
Cool. There you go, folks. If nothing else, you now know about Eat the Frog. Well, Dr. Neiffer, I am afraid we're approaching the top of the hour, and you know what that means.
Yeah, this is Geeks of the Week, and I pulled a
You
West
want to
Fryer
do another
here.
couple ones? I mean, the sponsors aren't going to get us if we go over time a little bit.
Yeah, we really need to work more on sponsor relations. But so there's 3 tools that I want to share with you. I will note Play AI again, which I talked about earlier, which is a really great text-to-speech engine, and it can train on your voice after 2 minutes of talking to it. It'll give you a script, you talk into it, and I did that with me and then my buddy Mike at work. And so I have both of our voices, and I can just create a conversation. It's pretty stunning, and you may have a use case for it, but that's not why I think you should play with it. I think you should play with it because you need to understand how easy it is now to clone someone's voice. And as seeing and hearing is believing. At least that's what has been the moniker we've used in the pre-internet, pre-Photoshop era. But of course, that's just way more intensive in a world of AI. So, but 2 other tools, both of which I think are worth your time in playing. I got fed an ad on Instagram, I think it was, for Highlight AI, and it's a pretty stunning productivity tool. It works on both Mac and Windows, and it's an AI a kind of a note taker that's always going, and you can not only record your calls to use that information later, but it's a desktop app and not just an internet app. You can do things like it'll notice when you're in a Google Doc, and if you have the Chrome extension installed, you can just pull it into this AI engine and ask things of it, and it kind of keeps track of your screen throughout the day. And you can pull it in with a single key click. And right now it's free. I'm assuming at some point it won't be. And it uses Claude and ChatGPT API access to access these things. But last week I had an epic number of calls I was on and planning meetings, and I used it to ask questions of all the tasks that I needed to pull from that. As it turns out, it did a perfect job at exactly that. And so it's the closest I've seen so far to an AI companion, is a term that's often used to kind of make things happen. But so far it's pretty great. So and a couple people in our office are using it now and have all kind of sung its praises. So that's Highlight AI.
Ladies and gentlemen, pretty soon, instead of a tie, Dr. Neiffer is just going to come in the Iron Man suit because he's going to have fabricated it with, Highlight AI or one of these other tools. It does remind me a bit of, though, that Microsoft tool where it was like recording everything you did. And there's a bit of a creepiness to that because, boy, are you ever trusting the cloud security of that tool.
Yeah, you absolutely are. And by the way, I read its terms of service before I started using it at work. And, and I also assumed that at some point the stuff's just going to be baked into the operating system. I think the both Microsoft and Apple envision this as the future. And the other tool I have to share tonight is something that next week we may even want to do a demo of. But Google's AI Studio is a free tool. Where you can sign up and get access to both the current and future models. There's some limitations on it, but it's basically free. But we talked about this a little bit in December, but they now have brought up their they call them stream real-time process, but it's just like the Apple Intelligence. It's just like the it's kind of like this Highlight AI. But one of the things you can do is actually share your screen with the AI, and it will talk to you as it can see your screen. And so I tested this in December for about 20 minutes and actually wrote a purposefully terse email. And the AI was watching my screen, and I said, "Can you help me make this less terse?" And as it turns out, it did an extraordinary job of just looking over my shoulder virtually and walking me through that. And I've seen demo videos with Gemini Live is what it's called inside the Google AI Studio, where it was helping them play games. It was helping them through a complicated problem. It was talking them through coding. It was talking them through Linux command lines. Just really impressive stuff. And I think I mentioned this in December, but I'll just say it one more time. I think 2025 is likely to be the year that Google catches up in this race. And I think it's they're kind of a sleeper hit here, but their notebook LM tool is just next level extraordinary. And if they already have the capability of you sharing its screen and you talking back and forth with an AI agent, that's pretty extraordinary.
So Google was ahead and may have always been ahead in this race. Just that ChatGPT via OpenAI jumped on the scene, and I think then caused everybody else to have to accelerate, because I think that Google had developed capabilities that they weren't sure if they were ready for the world, and their hand has been forced now in this race that we have. So, okay, ladies and gentlemen, those are three Geeks of the Week from Dr. Neiffer tonight. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to do 2. I already put this one in there. There's a shortened link to all of my notes from the weekend's Media Ed Forum. I have done a variety of things over the years, blogging, conferences, using Twitter, creating Twitter notes. And where I am now is I just like using a Google Doc. I also created a Wakelet of all the links, and it's there at the top. And I need to blog to reflect on. So I'm going to blog on some of that and create some videos just to reflect and share. I did capture a picture of my screen setup for the conference. And so there's the Flickr link to that. And thanks to Dr. Neiffer's very considerable amusement at my blundering, several times I have had this very cheap and crummy Velcroed, what is that called? MagSafe holder, trying to hold my camera behind my 27-inch 2012 iMac. And now I have a piece of metal, which is working great. And so it is holding my camera, and I made the switch to Sequoia, the latest 15.2 macOS version. I'm using continuity camera. It said it didn't work with Chrome, but it does, but it's been a little bit wonky. And what I've had to do, because it's not called Sidecar, but I'm using screen mirroring or whatever, what is that called? It's just like when you do Apple TV mirroring, screen mirroring, but you can't both continuity camera and do that. However, you can turn Bluetooth off on your iPhone, plug in your iPhone directly to your computer, and then you have a wired connection. So while I have been very blurry and not looking, very high def in our shows, this is continuity camera. And Dr. Neiffer, used this months ago, and I was like, wow, that looks kind of cool. I think I'm going to stick with this crummy, XSplit VCam thing. I was doing that for weeks. So there it is. If you haven't updated to the latest Sequoia, I encourage you to do it. Continuity camera is awesome. And as a side, it's also cool because I can have my phone right on my computer. And if I want those notifications or I want to be accessing my phone, I can do a number of things directly on the screen.
I would also note that the other strategy I've used for that is I did pick this up, for like $6 on TikTok Shop, and I'm embarrassed to say that I have anything for TikTok Shop, but I do. But this is a MagSafe stand for phones that you can just set up on your desk, and so. And you can, raise and lower it. And so, you have to put the phone in the opposite direction and ping that. But, I still think that's one of the most brilliant, underappreciated features of the modern Apple ecosystem, is that you can use your beautiful camera that's super high definition.
The best camera you've ever owned, that you ever have. Why not use that as your webcam? That's pretty smart.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting stuff.
Okay.
Well, Dr. Fryer, where can people find you on the internets?
Go to wesfryer.com and you'll have all the links. And how about you, Dr. Neiffer? I heard a rumor that a website got updated recently.
Yeah, my template that's been up for a year and a half has been updated to an actual website now. So you can find me at aicentrist.com, and I think I'm going to redirect Neiffer.com there too, for the 7 people on Earth that can spell it correctly. So this here is the EdTech Situation Room. We're a once a week podcast on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and sometime in the middle of the night UTC. Hey, you can always join the wonderful folks in our chat room by joining us live. We broadcast over YouTube and Facebook, right? Facebook's live.
We're not right now. Yeah, follow us on Facebook so we can broadcast there again, because we don't have 100 followers there, and we need to have 100 to prove we're legit and credible folks. So
yeah, totally. But hey, if you can't join us live, you can always download us where fine our podcasts are aggregated, or see us on our YouTube channel. So
and see us on our Substack. There's more folks engaging with Substack, and so, but yeah, all of the links are on edtechsr.com.
Yep. Absolutely. So, hey, stay
safe, stay savvy.
Is,
Dr. Neiffer, I've been studying the topographic contours all night. Are we looking at Montana there, or is it somewhere else, or do you know?
We are. This is Glacier National Park. So, this is a relatively dated topographical map, but I did in October of last year update to a new MacBook Pro, and I actually have a custom skin with this image on it that I need to sit down on a Saturday, because if I don't concentrate on it, it always ends up crooked. But it's been my background. It's also my desktop background. But I've never shied away from leaning into my Montana roots.
That's great. That's great. Well, thanks to Lisa and Peggy for joining us live, and we hope everybody has a great week. Be safe and keep building community. And we're glad you're building community with us here on the EdTech Situation Room.
Yep. Good night.